Alright, so we're going to convert fractions and decimals today, and there's a couple of benchmarks that you should just know because it's going to make your life much easier. So let's go over those. So 1/2 equals 5/10. 1/3 equals 3/10 repeating. 1/4 equals 25/100. 1/5 equals 2/10. 1/8 equals 125 thousandths. And then last one we'll do is 1/10 equals just that, 1/10. So those are just some of the benchmark fractions. There's others like 1/6 you can learn, but those are the 6 most common that you're going to see. And if you know those, it's going to make your life much easier if you need to find, what 3/5 is, or what 2/3 is, or 7/8, something like that. So let's go ahead and start working on some of these. Alright, so let's convert some of these. And the first couple there, I got 5/8 and 2/3. Those had benchmark fractions of 1/8. 1/8 equaled 125 thousandths. So if I just take that 125 thousandths and multiply it by 5, I'll get what 5/8 equals. So 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12, carry the 1. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. So that would be 625 thousandths. Well, 2/3, a little bit easier than that even. 1/3 equals 3/10 repeating. So I'll just multiply that by 2 to get 6/10 repeating. So that would equal 6/10 repeating. Now the one in blue, 13/40, is going to be a little bit harder because there's no benchmarks for 40. So the other way to always do this will always work even if you don't have a benchmark, is a fraction is a division problem waiting to happen. So I'm going to do my division. So I'm going to do 13 divided by 40. Well, 40 won't go into 13, so add a decimal. 40 will go into 130 3 times, which is 120. Subtract, I get 10, add another 0. 40 goes into 100 twice, which is 80. Subtract, I get 20, add another 0, bring it down. And 40 will go into 200 5 times, which is exactly 200. So 13 over 40 equals 325 thousandths. Oops. Let's write that correctly. So if you have a benchmark fraction and you know them, go ahead and use them. If you don't know the benchmark fraction, or there isn't one, then you can just divide your numbers and find out what your decimal is going to be. Alright, so now we're going to make these decimals into fractions or mixed numbers. So you're always going to just write it like you say it with the proper place value. So the first one is 6/10. So I'm going to do 6 over 10. And then I can reduce that, so I can divide both those by 2 to give me 3/5. And then 2 and 75/100. So you can write it like that. 2 and 75/100. Now, you can divide both those by 5 and then again by 5, or you can divide them by 25, or you can just think about 75 out of 100. If I have 75 cents, well, 100 makes $1, so 75 cents, that's 3/4. So that would equal 2 3/4. Now, if I did my division, I could divide both those by 25. And 75 divided by 25 is 3, and 100 divided by 25 is 4. So I still got my answer of 2 3/4. Just that first method, I kind of reasoned it out. Took what I already knew and applied it to the problem I was working on. So next we got 3 and 125 thousandths. So here's where those benchmark fractions come into play again. If you remember, 125 thousandths equals 1/8. So that's going to equal 3 and 1/8. If you were to work it out and put it over its place value, you'd have 125 over 1,000. And just so happens that you can divide both those by 125. But let's take the long way. Let's say I didn't know that. Let's say I had to divide it by 25. So 25 goes into 125 5 times. And 25 will go into 1,000. 25 will go into 100 4 times and then add a 0, so that would be 40. Well, I got 5 over 40, so I got to take that 5 over 40 and divide both of those by 5. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 40 8 times. So I still got the fraction of 1/8 by doing the division. It's just it took me longer to get there. But by knowing my benchmark fractions, I got there much faster knowing that it's 125 thousandths is 1/8. So my answer there is 3 and 1/8.